everyone. Welcome to Cyber Monday. Joining me as always is my awesome co-host, Dominic Vogel. Dominic, who do we have in the hot seat today?
Well, first off, I love it that when you call me awesome. That's great. But our guest today is Dr. Glasser. He's a professor of computing science at Simon Fraser University. And boy, he is one of the smartest people I think we've ever talked to. He is absolutely brilliant.
Awesome. So I'm going to jump in this seat. We're going to invite Dr. Glasser into this seat, and we'll be right back.
Dr. Glasser, thank you for joining us today. I know we have a lot of great topics that we want to get into. I think the first one that we really wanted to dive into is this whole notion of how cybersecurity is becoming so engrossed with industry today. More and more jobs are requiring cybersecurity aspects to that. There are more and more cybersecurity jobs being opened up for hiring. But there's not enough people to sort of fill that talent pipeline. What are post-secondary institutions doing, and sort of what's their role in sort of developing that next generation workforce?
Thank you very much for having me. And, from the events that we nowadays can see in the news, where cybersecurity breaches seem to happen more and more frequently with sometimes very significant impact, beyond, ransomware attacks, which already are very significant. It's about stealing intellectual property and IDs. We haven't seen the worst yet, which would mean breaches that infiltrate our critical infrastructure, like power grids, like smart transportation networks, and so there is more to come. Yes. Everyone seems to believe this, and but even for the breaches, significant breaches that we have seen, nowadays it's not good enough anymore to say we are so sorry. Like 500 million customer accounts got breached, and
please forgive us.
Their credit card information got compromised, and so on and so on. So there are legal implications, there are liabilities, and through the concept of class action lawsuits, this can become very expensive for companies. So they have very good reasons to take cybersecurity more serious, and instead of just hoping for the best, it won't hit us. Yes. They are now aware of that, something needs to happen. Insurance premiums are going through the roof. Unless companies can really prove they have done something, they have hired the right people, they are investing into IT infrastructure, into the training of personnel, and there is more. And in this climate, it's clear that there is a growing demand for cybersecurity experts. In a situation where the job market essentially is a void, we know from institutions like or initiatives like CyberSeek, it's part of the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education in the US, that right now about half of the total employed workforce in the U.S. Job market for cybersecurity jobs is around 720,000 people who are employed, and the number of open positions right now is about half of this. Right. So there is a significant demand to hire. And as educational institution, I think we have a responsibility to contribute to mitigating this situation by seriously thinking about investing into cybersecurity post-secondary education at all levels. This includes our undergraduate programs, our graduate programs at the master's and PhD level. And it seems that there is generally growing awareness also among the students that cybersecurity is becoming an interesting field. It's a very rich field. Cybersecurity overall is seen as an inherently interdisciplinary field. Yes. Yep. So the very core, though, is computing-based education, and but it's not enough for someone to just go through the computing-based education become an, say, network administrator. It's very important to also understand the broader picture, to understand what the business people think about this. Because as some people said, at the end of the day, cybersecurity is all about risk management, assuming that network technology will never be absolutely secure, at least not for the foreseeable future. And if we, consider where we are going with the Internet of Things, cloud computing, we are adding to the attack surface, so we can expect more problems to come down further, further down the road, and
we're making things more complex.
definitely.
At this stage, 100% security is not possible, and it's just becoming more of a problem.
Yeah, so it's in the end all about risk mitigation.
Yes.
We cannot hope to ever reach a state where we are entirely secure unless we get completely rid of the internet. So it's about making business decisions at the end of the day. We want to invest our dollars in mitigating risks that really matter rather than just buying new technology, new firewalls. And one also has to understand this broader aspect that cybersecurity is not just about technology. It's equally important to take into account the people aspect, train the workforce to avoid the worst mistakes, these email attachments and links we all know. Nowadays, about 95% of all the breaches that happen start with this email attachment.
Yep.
And the choice of a meaningful password, so the very basics in cybersecurity is something we need to train our workforce. And at the same time, it's also about processes and procedures that we all have to follow. And only if we consider all three aspects at the same time, we can hope to really make a difference. And that's also what we try to teach our students, to have this broader perspective, although most of them then have a technical field of specializations in the field of computer science, networking, and so on.
Yeah, and there's so many great threads that we could just pull on the topic. That's what makes cybersecurity so interesting, is that there's just so many rabbit holes we could go down. And one thread in particular that maybe we just tug on for a bit is that whole notion of cybersecurity being an interdisciplinary spot there, in which core to it obviously is a computer science aspect. But in a piece that you mentioned there earlier was that you're seeing more and more students being aware of cybersecurity as being a viable career. And I remember back in my day that cybersecurity wasn't really seen as a sort of a progressive choice for a career. Obviously, it's great that I think things have changed. What else can be done to sort of further the cause of cybersecurity being a great career? I know often we'll come across people who will sort of think, I have to be a hacker, or I have to wear a hoodie and code in my mother's basement and shower every other week. And it's like, no, that's Hollywood's version of what cybersecurity is. At what other levels of sort of schooling do we need to start broaching this? Is there something incumbent on the sort of at the high school level, or even further down? How can we have more of a grassroots approach to this? That's
a very, very good point. I mean, we have been asked by the government, provincial government in this case, can we not introduce more opportunities for training of coding skills, like boot camps in the summer? And actually, one would hope that this starts even earlier at high school. In fact, it does already. But one can actually start going further down to elementary schools and introducing basic concepts, basic ideas with the right tools and means to raise awareness of what coding means. And I think along the same stream, one could then introduce awareness for cybersecurity assuming this is a problem we are facing right now, which is there to stay. I don't believe it will go away anytime soon. Which is good for what we do at university. That's the opportunity side of something essentially bad.
Absolutely, yeah.
But in this stream, students will get a much broader understanding when they are starting at university, starting to look into cybersecurity opportunities and see the spectrum of career opportunities that they actually have. So they don't have to be someone who is essentially into cryptography, which is at the very technical end.
Yes.
There are ethical hackers and penetration testers, which is still very technical. And then it goes all the way up through cybersecurity analysts and risk managers to sales, cybersecurity sales or security sales representatives. And so I would say there is something for everyone in this spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, our responsibility to make sure that we convey this understanding in the way we teach cybersecurity courses. So the technology and the technical aspects are very important, but equally important, I think, is the broader understanding of this, the understanding of what risks mean, and to be able to clearly communicate with the business world is one of my personal key goals in the way I teach my courses.
That's awesome.
Now, Uwe, our audience, I would say, is primarily business leaders and business professionals. They may be thinking, well, how is this relevant to my situation here in my small or medium-sized business? Because my thinking is, I just think IT should take care of this, whether it's our own in-house IT department or outsourced IT. How would you respond to that way of thinking and operating?
Okay, so I see two aspects there. First of all, a traditional IT department may certainly be good to deal with the classical IT security issues, but then we have to understand that cybersecurity adds a whole new level to this of sophistication and something that's much broader than someone just trying to hack an account or so. If we look at what's called advanced persistent threats, these are threats where the attackers breach the security perimeter of some company, and then they linger around for a very long time, possibly months, trying to not be discovered, but establishing the foothold they have.
They have a lot of patience.
They have a lot of patience, but they gather more insight, more information, until eventually they feel confident enough to get what they want. And this could mean, in the case of Target, the US retailer chain, where then they had explored over weeks and months their network in 1,800 stores in the US, only to download the credit card credentials of 40 million Americans around Black Friday, the busiest shopping day in the US. And so this entire concept is called the kill chain, which requires a lot of combined skills, and it often starts with social engineering to do this initial breach and understand how to get into a system. And so this is something a classical IT department normally does not consider. So in this regard, I absolutely think there is more. And it is this broader perspective one has to have in order to be well prepared for what's to come.
Yes. So there's a big exposure there. I would say a lot of business owners, if not most of them, are not aware of this exposure.
I would say so, yeah.
Switching gears for a minute here. So looking into your areas of expertise, big data intelligence and situation analysis and what you know about cyber criminals and cyber criminal networks, what would you say you have learned the key takeaways for the people watching about cyber criminals and cyber criminal activity that can inform intelligent business decisions?
I think it's very important to accept the fact that no one is absolutely safe. The idea is we will eventually be breached. That's not a question.
Yeah.
And we have to accept this as a reality and act accordingly in making business decisions towards increasing the profile of cybersecurity within a company and making strategic investments to make sure that one is prepared. And what I mean is not just adding new technology, but also the two other aspects to train the workforce in a way that they raise their understanding of cybersecurity risks. The simple password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or so simply isn't cut it anymore. It doesn't cut it anymore, and it's also taking shortcuts that people often like to take to make it simple is just not good enough. And the consequences can be very harsh. I mean, for organized crime to move into the cyberspace is highly attractive. There is significantly more revenues
And less risk.
to harvest, less risk, and it may be even more interesting.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to have the IT skills to do this. They have the money to buy the skills they need.
Yeah.
And so this is a very promising outlook from their perspective. And so we can expect more to happen. A good example might be the breach of cybersecurity, of IT systems, IT security for cities. Recently was in the news.
Yeah.
In the US, I believe already two cities have been compromised with ransomware, and now one can just wait for the next to come. And I know Canadian mayors also are concerned now, what if it happens to them?
Yep.
Rightly so.
How do we protect against something like this? And this is a completely new culture we have to establish. And in the past, cybersecurity of products and services often was ignored, or at the best was considered, something you bolt on after the development of a product or introduction of a service. But this is not really what works. And so, we have to understand that if this is considered part of the integral design of a product or service, that in the end, it may also be a competitive advantage in a market to make sure that, customers who buy IoT devices won't regret it later, whether it's their TV or,
Because anything that's connected can be hacked into.
This is the problem. We have the tendency to connect more and more in our world, and at the same time we concentrate, our data on the cloud, and this increases the vulnerability. But if we think of a global attack surface, then also the fact that more and more people have access to the internet, they spend more and more time on the internet, and they do more and more of their daily things, not just banking, shopping, whatever, through the internet. So this makes the market for those who have malicious intents more and more attractive. And at the same time, more and more sophistication is becoming common in attacks we see. And still, even in this time, there are so many end users who don't find it necessary to get the latest security patches for their operating system. And, incidents we have seen in 2016 in the summer, the WannaCry virus, which worldwide infected more than 300,000 computers within a long weekend or something. It's probably something we're going to see more in the future. There are already warnings out. This can repeat itself. And I'm pretty certain that many of those who got compromised still haven't replaced the old operating system. So it's so easy to, and ransomware, as is well known, is something one doesn't even have to develop. You don't have to develop it yourself. You can rent it or buy it on dark markets. And even those who don't have the skill get proper instructions how to use it.
We're really through the looking glass right now. It's a very interesting point in time, and we really appreciate you sharing such awesome insight. It's pretty obvious that you're much smarter than the two of us. So we really, really appreciate you sharing that insight with us. That was fantastic, and look forward to having another conversation soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome conversation with Dr. Glasser. My biggest takeaway from that was talking about cybercrime and just how much more attractive it is than traditional crime. It's much more profitable, a lot more appealing, a lot safer for cyber criminals to hide behind a computer and commit these cyber crimes.
Exactly. It was a real pleasure just to sit back and listen to Dr. Glasser talk. He was, as we said at the beginning, he's just a really brilliant person. And I think one of the consistent theme he was talking about is security by design. That cybersecurity can't be an afterthought. You don't bolt it on. It's integral to the initial design. You got to do it from the beginning. I think that was a brilliant point that you mentioned. Yep.
Huge point. Thanks for watching. You can check out our other podcasts on conversationsthatmatter.tv, and we'll see you next Monday.